Hey everybody, welcome back to the Purple A Society YouTube channel, my 4D University, to help us to transition into more fourth dimensional thinking. I've got great playlists, music playlists, audiobook playlists, lectures. I have a playlist demystifying the tarot, and this particular video is a part of my series called Real Talk with AI as we tackle some of my most profound conversations with ChatGPT. Stay to the end. I'll give you some information about my $7 mystery school, and let's begin. So this episode dives into insecurity. There was a video I had come across over the weekend where a man was talking about looks maxing, which is now the culture of trying to perfect every inch of one's body through plastic surgery, through mewing, through exercise, all kinds of things, through taking certain kind of chemicals, foods, what have you. It's this whole obsession with changing who we are to resolve some personal insecurities. And so what I said to ChatGPT was, let's have an in-depth discussion on insecurity. Western society is a cesspool of insecure people for so many reasons. Let's break down what insecurity is from the psychological and neurological perspective. Then let's talk how to resolve it using easy to understand empirical science and esoteric philosophies. Please provide these solutions in ways that are easy to understand and apply. So the answer, let's get precise first, because insecurity gets thrown around loosely, but is actually a very specific internal pattern. What insecurity actually is on the psychological level. At its core, insecurity is a learned expectation that I am not enough, or I might lose safety, belonging, or value. Psychology breaks this into a few key systems. Number one, self-concept instability. Your identity feels fragile or conditional, and that's built from childhood feedback, social comparison, and success-failure loops. If your worth equals performance, approval, or appearance, insecurity becomes inevitable. Number two, attachment patterns. From early relationships, from our parents and caregivers, we develop ancient attachment, which is, will I be abandoned? Avoidant attachment, which is, I can't trust people. And secure attachment, which is, I'm okay even if things change. Insecurity often equals your nervous system expecting loss. Number three, social comparison loop. Modern culture, especially online, creates constant ranking, artificial standards, and highlight reels. So your brain keeps asking, where do I stand? That question alone fuels insecurity. From the neurological perspective, what's happening in the brain? Now let's get into the actual wiring. Number one, the threat system of the amygdala. The amygdala scans for danger. And here's the problem. It doesn't distinguish well between physical danger and social rejection. So getting ignored, being judged, and feeling behind or it is processed like a threat to survival. Number two, our default mode network, called the DMN. The default mode network is active when you're thinking about yourself. In insecure people, it tends to over-ruminate, replay mistakes, and predict negative outcomes, such as I sounded stupid, or they don't like me, or I'm behind in life. Number three, dopamine and validation loops. Dopamine isn't just pleasure, it's anticipation plus reward learning. And social media trains us to post, wait, and then there's validation. And then to compare, feel lack, and seek boost. This creates addiction to external validation. Why it's so intense in modern Western culture? You're not wrong. There are structural reasons. Number one, identity equals achievement in the areas of career, money, and status. If those fluctuate, your identity collapses. Number two, constant visibility. Through platforms like Instagram and YouTube, you are always on display and always comparable or comparable. Number three, loss of stable meaning systems. Less community grounding, spiritual identity, or intergenerational wisdom, and more individual pressure to figure it out alone. And that creates existential insecurity. How to resolve insecurity through science plus practical application. We'll keep this simple, actionable, and real. Number one, regulate the nervous system first, not the mindset. You can't think your way out of insecurity if your body thinks you're in danger. Simple tools: slow breathing. Try the 4-second inhale and the 6-second exhale. Walking without your phone. Cold water on face. Why? Because it signals safety to the amygdala. Number 2, separate feeling from fact, or separate feeling from fact. When insecurity hits, instead of saying I'm not enough, train yourself to say I'm feeling not enough. This recruits your prefrontal cortex logic center and reduces emotional flooding. Number 3, reduce comparison inputs. You don't need monk level discipline, just structure. Limit random scrolling and choose intentional content, because comparison is not neutral input, it is psychological conditioning. Number 4, build internal evidence. This is huge. Confidence is not affirmations, it's evidence your brain trusts. So keep small promises daily, track wins, even tiny ones. For example, say, I said I'd write 1 paragraph and I did. That rewires to I can rely on myself. Rewire identity cognitive framing. Instead of saying I need to be impressive, say I am someone who practices, learns, and evolves. This removes performance pressure and fear of failure. The esoteric perspective, where this gets deeper. Now let's go beyond psychology. Many traditions describe insecurity as over-identification with the ego or the false self. The ego illusion. In philosophies like Advaita Vedanta, the self you defend is not your true nature. It's a constructed identity. Insecurity exists because you're trying to stabilize something inherently unstable. Number 2, the observer shift. Practices from Buddhism teach you are not your thoughts or your emotions. You are the awareness observing them. The practical version. And by the way, I dropped a video today on the concept of self-love that dealt with what you're not and what you are. And it's great. It's called Reasons to Love Yourself and Why It's Delusional Not to. I'll put the link in the description box so you can check that video out as well. The practical version. When insecurity arises, say internally, this is a pattern moving through me, not this is me. Number 3, energy and attention. Where attention goes, identity forms. If you constantly attend to lack, comparison, and fear, you strengthen those patterns. If you attend to creation, curiosity, and meaning, you weaken insecurity. Integrating both worlds. The real solution. Here's the balanced truth. Science helps you regulate and rewire, and spiritual insight helps you detach and transcend. You need both. So, a simple daily framework. Apply this. If you want something practical, morning, 2 to 5 minutes. Breathe slowly and set the intention. Today I move from creation, not comparison. During the day, when insecurity hits, number 1, pause. Number 2, breathe. Number 3, label, this is insecurity. And number 4, continue action anyway. In the evening, write 3 things you follow through on. Build internal trust. The final truth. Insecurity doesn't mean something is wrong with you. It means your brain learned to associate worth with uncertainty, and that can be retrained science and released spiritual awareness. If you want, we can even go deeper into insecurities in relationships, insecurity around money and success, or how to turn insecurity into creative power, which that's good. But what I asked was, let's go into insecurity in relationships and society and why we as a society value competition. When did we as a species, I think I left out a word. When did we as a species begin, that's what I meant to say. When did we as a species begin competing for validation? Or when did we as a species believe that competing for validation should override competition for resources? I'm glad that ChatGPT caught what I was trying to say. Let's go straight at it. Because relationship insecurity and social insecurity are not random personal flaws. They're the result of ancient survival wiring colliding with modern social structures. And your question about competition for validation versus resources is actually the key to the whole thing. Insecurity in relationships. What's really happening? At the deepest level, relationship insecurity is fear of losing emotional safety, connection, or significance. But your brain treats that as, I might not survive this. The attachment plus the threat loop. Two systems are constantly interacting. Number one, the attachment system, which seeks closeness, bonding, and reassurance and is rooted in early caregiver dynamics. And number two, the threat system, which scans for rejection, withdrawal, change in tone, behavior, and attention. Even small things trigger it. A delayed text, less enthusiasm, subtle distance. Why it feels so intense? Because to your nervous system, love equals safety and disconnection equals danger. The amygdala doesn't care that it's just a relationship. It reacts like it's life or death. Common insecurity patterns include anxious patterns. Do they still want me? Or overanalyzing, seeking reassurance. Avoidant patterns, which are I can't rely on anyone, or emotional distance and shutdown. And push-pull dynamic. One chases, one withdraws. Both are insecure, just in different directions. How to stabilize relationship insecurity. Learn to self-regulate first. Before texting, reacting, or confronting, pause, breathe, and let the emotional spike pass. Otherwise, you're reacting from survival mode, not reality. Number two, reality check the story. Ask, what actually happened? What am I adding to it? For example, fact, they replied late. Story, they don't care about me anymore. Number three, build internal safety. This is the real work. If your sense of worth depends on someone else's behavior, you will always feel unstable. So you build self-trust, emotional independence, and a life outside the relationship. Insecurity in society, bigger system. Now zoom out. Societal insecurity is mass-scale comparison plus unstable identity systems. You have the status game, and that's where humans don't just compete for survival, we compete for status, recognition, and position in the group. Basically, historically, higher status equals more access to resources, mates, and protection. Your brain still thinks this is true, even though you're not hunting for food and you're not in a tribe of 150 people. Your brain still tracks, where do I rank? Modern amplification. Platforms like Instagram and TikTok turn status into a global scoreboard, a constant visibility, and instant comparison. So now you're comparing yourself to thousands or millions of people, and that's unnatural. Competition resources versus validation. This is where your question gets really interesting. Early humans were involved in resource competition. So for most of human history, competition was about food, shelter, territory, and mates. Direct, physical, survival-based. Validation existed, but it was tied to contribution, skill, and role in the group. The shift number one began with agriculture and hierarchies. Around 10,000 to 12,000 years ago, surplus resources appeared and social hierarchies formed, and power and status became more abstract. Now, you didn't just survive, you had a position. Shift number two, civilization and symbolic status. In large societies, most people weren't directly competing for food. They were competing for rank, titles, and social recognition. Status became symbolic. Shift number three, industrial and capitalist systems. With modern economies, survival is less immediate for many. Identity becomes tied to career, wealth, and productivity. Now, validation equals proof of worth. Shift number four, digital era, major turning point. This is the big one. Now we have likes, views, and followers, and these are quantified validation metrics. So competition becomes who is most seen, liked, and approved of. The key insight is that we didn't stop competing for resources. We layered validation on top of it, because in modern systems, validation often leads to resources. Example, more attention, more opportunities, thus more money. Why this creates so much insecurity? Because validation is unstable, external, and it's infinite. There's no clear enough. The concept of enough is not clear. Unlike food or shelter, you can always want more. The esoteric perspective on this shift. Many traditions would say this is the age of ego amplification, where identity is built on perception, image, and external reflection. In systems like Buddhism, this is called attachment to illusion. You suffer because you're chasing a moving target and you're trying to stabilize something inherently unstable. How to navigate this practically? You don't escape society, but you can move differently inside of it. Opt out of the invisible scoreboard. Stop unconsciously tracking who's ahead, who's doing better, because that game has no finish line. Number 2, shift from validation to creation. Instead of how am I being perceived, move to what am I building, expressing, or exploring. This is huge for you, especially with your creative direction. Number 3, redefine competition. Healthy competition goes, can I grow, improve, or create better? Unhealthy competition is, am I more valuable than them? Number 4, build real world anchors. Skills, relationships, and consistency, and these ground you in reality and not perception. The final truth: insecurity in relationships and society come from the same root. Outsourcing your sense of safety and worth to something unstable, another person, a system, and an audience. And the shift you're noticing in society is real. We move from survival to competition to identity plus validation competition, and most people don't realize they're playing that game. So then I asked, now let's address physical insecurity and the looks maxing trend. How does an individual immerse in society that values appearance, whether superficially or as a necessary biological motivation? Detach from insecurities. How does that person detach from insecurities around physical appearance? Let me read it again because I was getting jumbled on my words. Let me just put my glasses on because that's the problem. Here we go. Now let's address physical insecurity and the looks maxing trend. How does an individual immerse in a society that values appearance, whether superficially or as a necessary biological motivation, detach from insecurities around physical appearance? What is a better, more stable foundation to stand on related to attractiveness? And ChatGPT says this is a sharp question because physical insecurity sits right at the intersection of biology, culture, and identity. And the looks maxing trend is basically people trying to solve a real signal with an unstable strategy. Let's unpack it cleanly. What physical insecurity actually is. At its core, physical insecurity equals a fear that your appearance lowers your value, desirability, or access to connection and opportunity. That fear isn't irrational, it's partly biological. The biological layer, why looks matter at all. Humans are wired to assess health, skin, symmetry, and vitality, fertility cues, strength, and vitality. This is tied to evolutionary psychology, mate selection, survival, etc. Your brain is constantly making snap judgments through systems like the amygdala, which equals our center for threat and safety, and the reward system, which is the system for attraction and pleasure. So yes, appearance does matter at a baseline level. The cultural distortion layer. Now here's where things go sideways. Modern society, especially through platforms like Instagram and TikTok, has amplified narrow beauty standards, monetized insecurity, and created constant comparison loops. So instead of, am I generally healthy and presentable, it becomes, do I match the top 1% of curated attractiveness? That's not biology anymore, that's distortion. The looks maxing trap. Looks matching tries to optimize appearance to increase attraction, status, and confidence. But here's the problem. It often ties your entire sense of worth to something inherently unstable. Why it backfires. Moving target problem. Number 1. The trends change, standards shift, and there is no final form. Number 2, the external validation dependence. You start needing compliments, attention, and approval to feel okay. Number 3, identity collapse risk. If your value equals appearance, aging, rejection, or comparison equals an identity crisis. The deeper psychological issue is physical insecurity isn't really about looks. It's about if I'm not attractive enough, I won't be chosen, valued, or safe. And that's an attachment plus survival belief. A more stable foundation for attractiveness. You don't need to reject appearance. You need to reposition it. Layer 1, baseline, physical care, non-negotiable. This is grounded, not obsessive. Hygiene, fitness and movement, grooming, and style that fits you. Think respecting the body, not chasing perfection. Layer 2, nervous system energy, underrated. People are deeply influenced by presence, calmness, and confidence signals. This comes from regulation, not looks. When you're grounded, others feel it. Let me stop right there. And that's a great aside, because I have noticed that the people that have been the most attractive to me, like on all fronts, are people who can sit and be present and give eye contact and they really hear a person. Those people have psychologically always been the most attractive in the room, even more attractive than some of the people who may have looked better in the room from a societal position, like what's acceptable for social standards of the social standards of beauty. It is the people who can sit and be engaged in the presence in their senses. That's essential. That's what sensual means. Being engaged in what your five senses or your six senses can sense right now. They're engaged, and they're engaging because they're engaged. That's just always been my take. Test it out if you want to and just see. A person who can hold that eye contact, a person that's actually hearing, a person that is so present that they're comfortable in their own skin. There may be a little bit of banter or repartee that they can give off. That just someone who's just enjoying what their eyes can see, their ears can hear, their nose can smell, their tongue can taste, their hands can touch, and their body or their nervous system can intuit. They're so much more attractive. They also tend to be highly creative because they're present and they're just creating, going stream of consciousness, creating, right? That's where swag comes from. Swag comes from deep presence and knowing of self, so that the way that you move, how you dress, your style, the way that you speak, your way of being comes from inside of you, and it's not something that is conjured up based on things that you see that you're trying to compete with on the external. Okay, so that's all I wanted to say on that. Layer 3, self-trust. This is where real attractive stabilizes. Ask, do I follow through? Do I respect myself? Do I stand on something? People are drawn to certainty plus direction. Layer 4, identity and perspective. Attractive people often have a way of seeing the world, a voice, a point of view, and this is why creators, artists, thinkers become magnetic, even without perfect looks. Layer 5, detachment from outcome. Ironically, the less you need to be seen as attractive, the more attractive you become, because you're not seeking approval, you're just expressing naturally. The esoteric perspective, the deeper layer. Many traditions would say attractiveness is not just physical, it's energetic coherence. In Taoism, attraction comes from being in alignment with your nature, not forcing and not overcompensating. In Buddhism, attachment to form or appearance creates suffering because the body changes and perception changes. So grounding identity in appearance equals unstable foundation. The practical translation. Instead of how do I look to others, shift to am I aligned, grounded, and expressed? Practical detachment, real world. Here's how to actually apply this without becoming delusional or dismissive. Number 1, stop overexposing yourself to idealized images. This is not weakness, it's strategy. Your brain adapts to what it sees repeatedly. Number 2, upgrade what you can control. Fitness, grooming, posture, style, then stop obsessing. Number 3, build non-physical value streams. If your only asset is appearance, insecurity stays high. Add skills, creativity, communication, insight, and now your identity is diversified. Number 4, catch the thought pattern. When you think I'm not attractive enough, interrupt with compare to what standard and who said it. Number 5, re-anchor daily. Ask, did I show up as myself today? Did I move forward in something real? Not, was I attractive enough? The balanced truth. Looks matter biologically, but they're overweighted culturally and unstable psychologically. The final reframe. Instead of chasing, how do I become attractive enough to feel secure? Shift to, how do I become someone whose sense of self doesn't collapse based on appearance? Because the most stable form of attractiveness is a person who is grounded, self-trusting, expressive, and not dependent on being validated. That energy reads immediately, on or off camera. That was good, y'all. I hope y'all, I mean, what do y'all think about it? Was that good to you guys? If you think it is or it's not, or there's other ways that you would look at it, or what, just put it in the comments below. Let me know your thoughts on it. And make sure to click the description box in the description box below this video, because the link to my $7 a month mystery school is attached there. And for $7 a month, you get 4 episodes of my my lectures, my Inner Fort Mystery School lectures, where we decode the tarot, we decode ancient mythology, we decode the ancient scriptures and texts. We break down what words mean. We break down what some of the mythologies actually meant, fairy kingdom. We go into the soul's journey through music and entertainment, through pop culture, through politics and geopolitics. And we break all of it down by just analyzing the ancient symbols and the ancient sciences that have been purposefully and intentionally hidden from us. Purposefully and intentionally hidden from us, so that the people who would do the hiding of it could have access to it, because the people who try to keep this stifled are using it. They're using the knowledge against us. And so our best weapon is to have the knowledge for ourselves and utilize it ourselves. We take back control over our spiritual destiny and spiritual sovereignty. And that's what the Mystery School is about. And we also have a book club associated with it. And right now we are reading How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, because we also believe in personal development. Personal development adds into spiritual development. It's all in that hodgepodge, that gumbo, that gabagool, as Michael Scott would say. It's all in there together. So check it out. Click that link. You can listen to 1 episode for free, and then make the determination if you want to be down with us or not. And I hope you have a wonderful day. Next time we'll talk. I don't know what we'll be talking about in Real Talks with AI, but I know it will be something interesting. Thank you, and have a nice day. Bye.